Okay, perfect. Here we go. All right, guys, RevUP Module 6. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Sorry, it's getting started a little late, but today we're going to talk about the whole buyer process, like start to finish. Like what happened, where do we start when working with the buyer, and how does it end? The fun part. So today is week 6 of a 12-week program. So after this, we'll be halfway through. And again, if you are just watching this video for the first time, if this is the first RevUp you've seen, that's fine. These do not necessarily work on top of each other. They work in conjunction, and you can go back and watch them in any order. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the steps in the buyer's process, the buyer qualification and consultation, the art of showing homes, purchase agreement concepts, buyer's market versus seller's market, and getting your offer accepted. Today's affirmation is, I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, and motivated buyers and sellers. This is a super important affirmation. Oftentimes, you know, we get desperate, for lack of a better word, where we start working with a buyer, and the buyer's not treating us fairly. They're not respecting us by signing a buyer's agreement. They're not respecting our time that we say that we can show them homes, and they're not realistic about what they want and what they can afford. And so the point of this affirmation is, you know, you control your business, and everybody wants to be making commissions, but think about how much time that one buyer who's not respecting you and your time can take up, and how much more business you could be doing if you're taking that time and reinvesting it into other parts of your business. So that is the point of this affirmation. I think it's very important. All right, let's jump in and talk about finding and qualifying buyers. So let's talk about some generating buyer leads. So when generating buyer leads, that is our primary responsibility. So to be clear, you are not in the real estate business. You are in the lead generation business. The more time you spend generating a steady supply of leads, the more robust, predictable, and successful your business will become. In the beginning of your career, you will likely spend more time with buyers than sellers. Buyers are often easier to attract, and there is more skill required in winning listings. That is not to say that you cannot do both, but the majority of new real estate agents' businesses is approximately 70-30 buyers, sellers. There's a wide variety of methods for attracting buyers. Here are some examples. And we've talked about this in previous RevUps, but let's touch back on this again. You've got open houses, you've got internet/online leads, farming, your circle of influence, that's my favorite, mailers, social media, which kind of goes back to your circle of influence, networking also goes back to your circle of influence, door knocking, circle prospecting, referrals. And those are just some examples, obviously.
Next week, we're going to go super deep into open houses. I am super excited.
I am as well. I'm glad we can do open houses again. Okay, let's talk about the process. I am going to say, I've said this in other RevUps, I don't necessarily agree with everything RevUp says in the exact specific order. But if you followed RevUp, their steps by steps to the T, you're going to be successful. So just because I say what RevUp is saying, and then maybe I disagree, you got to find what works for you best. But as a rule of thumb, RevUp really does a great job of you know, painting a picture, and then you can kind of customize this to your business. So it says, you know, first step is buyer qualification. Pre-qualify a buyer. And give them their homework, which is essentially set them up with the lender, right? That's what they say is your first step. Next step is consulting with the buyer. The one thing I'm going to disagree with is my first step is consulting with the buyer, because put yourself in a buyer's shoes. Okay, you call me and you say, hey Isaac, I've been friends with you on Facebook for a while, and I see that you post on Facebook and about real estate, and I want to buy a home. If I just said to you, oh, that's so awesome, I'm really happy for you, have you spoken with a lender? You're going to be like, oh no, I haven't yet. Okay, perfect. Well, here's my lender's information. Call my lender and get back to me when you can. That may work. Honestly, that probably won't offend people, but it could be like, well, I just want to talk to you about the process. So that's why I put the consultation ahead of time. And I suppose if we were talking with the creators of RevUp, they'd probably say the same thing. Like, you want to consult a little bit at first, but their point is, in saying this, don't spend too much time on a buyer who, makes $2,000 a month and has $1,000 a month in debt payments. you know, still be respectful and, you know, set them on the right course, but don't spend too much time on that when they are not a realistic buyer. But anyways, sorry, I'll stop rambling. My only point is I start with the consultation, and then the consultation leads to get pre-qualified with a lender. Next is representation agreement. We talked about this last week. I'm not necessarily 100% in agreement that you need a buyer's representation agreement. Well, let's start out and say really quickly, you do not need a buyer's representation agreement. It's awesome if you can get one. The problem is, not the problem, I think it's kind of a cool niche or sell when you're able to say, you know what, I don't require you to sign a buyer's agency agreement because I'm that confident in my ability, and I'm that confident that you're not going to want to leave me. So you have the ability to leave me at any time, and if I'm not doing a good job, you should. So that's kind of my sell. That's what I say. People appreciate that. People respect that. But I know some very successful agents, some of the most successful agents in the entire world will tell you they do not work with a buyer unless they sign a buyer's agency agreement, period. And there are, yes.
Sorry. I think this is something where in Washington, if you say you're a real estate broker, people assume that you're a real estate agent and that you're also a realtor. Like that's kind of a Washington thing. People don't really know the difference. I think in other states like California and Vegas, really, it's super common to have a buyer sign that form with you. But in Washington, it's not very common. So asking someone to do it feels super off-putting almost. It makes them feel trapped. Whereas I think RevUP is sort of based for across the country. So in other states, of course, you'd get that signed. But in Washington, like it just doesn't translate.
It's literally required in some states. And again, I don't want to understate it. It's really awesome if you're able to get it signed and you feel very confident in explaining your value to your clients and saying, and that's why I need you to sign this because I can't, you know, I don't work for free. If you feel confident saying that, again, I know tons of very successful agents who do not work with a buyer unless they sign it. And there's other benefits too. I'm not going to get into too many details, but if you have a buyer's agency agreement and your buyer goes to a new construction home and they're looking around and the new construction homes are notorious for getting a buyer to sign something that says, oh, we're not represented, but they don't really tell them what they're signing. It's horrible. This has happened multiple times this year with agents in our office. It's awful. If you have a buyer's agency agreement, you're covered for that. There's a lot of reasons to get one or not get one. I'm not going to belabor this too much, but anyways, I'm just saying you don't have to get one. So that's the only reason I'm just hesitating on number 3. You don't have to do it. It's great if you feel confident getting it. If you want to elaborate on this, schedule a phone call with me and let's talk about it in a little more depth. Next is showing appointments made. Next is showings arranged. Then you got each property considered or eliminated, property selected, offer made and negotiated, escrow open, deposit earnest money, steps in the pending path. That includes, you know, the inspection, et cetera, and the appraisal, loan documents signed, escrow instructions documents signed, funds released and sales recorded, buyer takes possession. So that's kind of the quick 14-step process from when you start talking with the buyer to the end. As we've talked in previous meetings, in previous RevUps, don't forget step 15, which isn't listed, and that's follow-up. It has nothing to do with today's meeting, but follow-up is how you get those clients for life and how you get those clients to refer you. Okay, so step 1, pre-qualify. Once you find people who are thinking of buying, you must be sure they meet the following criteria. Can they make the move now? So like, is their lease close to expiring, or is their home going to be sold in the next 30 days? And if they can't, then that's great. Talk about what their timing is. Do they have their financing in order? Down payment, down payment and their earnest money. If not, there's ways around that. There's other things you can do. You can have very low earnest money. There's 0 down payment programs, etc. Are they willing? Are the parties motivated? This is a hard thing to figure out, but you know, a general rule of thumb is sellers need to sell, right? Because they're getting a job, they're getting transferred. They're behind on payments. Sellers need to sell. Buyers don't need to buy. Buyers can just rent. They can move in with a family member. So it's good to know going into it, how motivated are these buyers? Are they able to buy? So similar to Ready, do they have major credit issues to resolve? Have they been on the job long enough? Do they make enough money? Are there any legal issues, divorces, name changes, etc.? This is all really high level stuff that we could talk about for the next 2 hours. So I'm not going to go into too many details. Also, I want to say these are also very personal questions. So it's not necessarily your job to ask these questions, but if they come up, it's things to keep in mind. You don't want to be asking a buyer on an initial consultation like, hey, what's your credit score? Hey, what's your income? Hey, what's your debt? Those are personal questions. If they share it with you, you can take that and learn from that. But generally what you want to do is you kind of want to hear what they're willing to tell you, get them to a lender, and the lender will ask them the more personal questions. So before you put people in your car and invest your valuable time and resources, be sure the odds that your buyers can and will buy are in your favor. Again, it's really difficult because you don't want to say, oh, you've only had your job for 6 months, can't help you. No, you want to let them down softly. I just had a friend come to me and say, hey man, my lease is up in a month and I need to buy this month. And I was like, sweet man. And I talked to him through the process and I kind of got some general details. Sounds like he was good. Get him over to my lender. My lender said he just bought a car and his car payment was $800 a month. Crazy. So this is a good time to pause. I want to show you just for your education. This is how a lender generally pre-qualifies somebody. There's a lot of different factors, but I'm going to talk to you guys about the important things. This is a little spreadsheet I put together. So this is an affordability calculator. So what a lender is going to do is they're going to take your total taxable monthly income. They're going to divide it by two. Actually, it's 45%, give or take. Every lender is a little different, so multiply it by 0.45. And then they're going to subtract your monthly debt payments. So they're not going to subtract everything you owe on your credit card and your car payment and all that. No, they're going to subtract your monthly debt payments. So let's say we have somebody who has a $5,000 a month gross, again, before taxes, $5,000 a month income, and his spouse or her spouse has a $3,000 a month income, and they also have some additional taxable income at $500 a month. Okay, perfect. So this calculator, I'm happy to share it with anybody, but it calculates that and it brings that number over here to this revised monthly income, and that's taking this number and multiplying it by 0.45, which equals this minus their debt payments. So they have to pay $100 a month in credit card payments and $400 in car payments and $200 in student loans and whatever else. Let's say another 100 here. I'm just being, for example. Okay, so again, what it does is it takes your total gross income multiplied by 0.45 minus debt equals the max amount of money a lender is going to loan to you per month. Here's the important part. This is not your payment. This is not your principal and interest. This is everything combined. Your principal and interest, if there is an HOA, PMI, which is mortgage insurance. That's another big topic. So if you have questions about that, let me know. But if you're not, essentially, if you don't have 20% or more equity in a home, you're going to pay PMI, mortgage insurance, your property taxes, and your homeowner's insurance. So those 5 things all have to fit within that $3,000 payment. This is a metric. This is a very basic metric. It totally depends on a lot of things, but this is saying if this is your payment, this is roughly what you can afford, give or take. However, if you want to be more specific, we know this is probably what they can afford, and we're pretty damn close, right? If they, maybe they forgot about some debt, but this is fairly accurate, this number right here. So we can now go over to a mortgage calculator and put in 500,000, give or take. Let's say they want to do a 3% down conventional loan, 30 years. And you can talk to your lender about this, but say, hey, what are rates right now? And talk to him. I know I just bought a home at around 2.5. So you put in 2.5 interest rate. Okay, so here's their principal and interest for a $500,000 home with 3% down at 2.5 interest rate. This is calculating $75 a month in homeowners insurance, $442 in property taxes. Obviously, asterisks, that depends on if there is, depends on where you are, right? North End, Tacoma, super high property taxes, other areas, not so much. So that's an estimate. You can add HOA fees. This also didn't add PMI. PMI is going to be anywhere from $150 to $300 a month. But this is good. Let's add PMI in the HOA area. So we know that that this person could afford a $500,000 home, would cost them about $2,733 a month. The reason I'm showing you this is we're not lenders. So let's be really careful before we start telling people, hey, here's what you can afford. You don't want to say that. There's so many different factors. This 2.5 interest rate, I got a better rate because I've got a good credit score, right? If your buyer has a really poor credit score, they're going to be a lot higher interest rates. You want to be really careful when you do this. And when you're sitting down with someone and you're showing them this affordability calculator and you're showing them this mortgage calculator, you're disclosing to them, these are estimates. This is like, so you have an idea of kind of the range we're going to be in. But this is why you really need to talk to a lender. But the reason I do this in the first meeting before I just send them to the lender is because I want to get them excited, right? I want them to not, I don't want to just blow them off and say, well, go talk to a lender and talk to me when you're done with that. I want to say, well, get the little information they have and then say, so it looks like you can afford around this much per month. How does that sound? And that would mean this much house. People appreciate that. And anyways, I guess I'm rambling, but my point is I like to do this in the initial consultation, but be careful how much you say, because you don't want to
break somebody's heart.
yeah, I'd rather under promise and over perform, right? And let the lender be the bad guy. And especially if you don't know somebody, don't be asking, hey, what's your credit score? Or how much money do you make per month? I'm one of the people that I don't think those questions should be as private as they are, especially anyways. But most people, it's a very private question. So be careful, right? If they're giving that information, great. If they're not, just say something like 620 is a minimum credit score. The higher credit score you have, the lower your interest rate's going to be. Sound good? Sound good. And then normally when you say that, they're going to be like, oh, I'm around 750. Perfect. Now we know they're going to be on the low end, right? Okay.
Anna, I saw your message. Isaac will send me the affordability calculator and I'll send it out in the recap email.
Absolutely. I totally lost track of where I was on this list. I just got on a total tangent. See, this is what I do. Okay. I'll pick where I think I left off. Okay. Are they ready? Do they currently own a home? Do they plan to sell it before they buy? If you plan to sell it, is it on the market? If so, have you accepted an offer? I'm not even going to spend too much time. These are all very basic questions that you should ask, right? You want to figure out, these questions are obvious in my opinion. There's nothing on this list that is like, oh, I didn't think of asking that. No, this is all obvious. The point is, don't just be talking, be listening, right? Get as much information as they're willing to give you. Talk to them about timing. Talk to them about how much do they want their monthly payment to be. Talk to them about their reason for moving. That's super important, right? If their reason for moving is that they hate being in a city, that tells you so much about the type of location. You can start thinking like, okay, I know the type of areas that they're looking for. Even if they don't know it, I know because I know the area well. Anyways, step one, pre-qualify. It's get them in touch with your lender, but also listen to them, hear what they're interested in, and be a sponge and take notes. Also, this is really important. This is where your CRM comes into play. Or if you take notes on paper, or if you take it on Google Docs, that's fine, but make sure you're taking very clear notes. And if you're writing by hand, I would put it online or on your phone or somewhere that you can pull it up if they call you sometime and you're like, oh, I got to remember the notes I had on them. Okay. Step 1B, lender meeting. So yeah, this is the second part of pre-qualification. Get them in touch with your lender. I've already talked about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time. This is super, super important. And there's one reason we know why it's important, right? We need to know, are they actually pre-qualified? A lot of times they think that their credit score is 650, but it's actually 580. So let's try and get them in touch with a lender who can get them in touch with a credit repair company so you can keep doing your business and the lender will take over. And that was the second thing I wanted to say. When you refer them to your lender, you have a partner now. You have a team member. You two are working together. You both are working up front. You get paid when it closes, right? And so it's nice that if you somehow drop the ball, and hopefully the lender won't, right? So that's a really awesome reason to get your lender involved right away, so that the lender and you are working together and trying to push this guy together towards closing. Okay, step 2, the buyer consultation. So buyer's meeting, when you're meeting the buyer for the first time, it should be in your office. That's, again, safety is super important. that's if you're meeting a buyer who you don't know, right? If you know this buyer, you can meet wherever you want. However, with that said, most coffee shops are closed right now. We have a conference room here. You're always welcome to come use our conference room to meet clients. And it is a very nice professional space. We've got great Wi-Fi. We've got a good TV that you can connect your computer to and display listings. It's a very professional place to meet, but you can meet wherever you like. As Robin and I have said before, if you're ever feeling unsafe, definitely meet in a public place. And if you're ever going to someone's home or something, at least make sure you either have someone with you, or you're texting Robin or I and saying, hey, I'm going into a meeting here. If I don't respond, if I don't call you back in 30 minutes, let someone know. We've belabored
So
this.
that's okay. Like, I just want you guys to know that Isaac and I are both totally fine with you guys doing that. Like, one of our brokers, she was showing a property that she hadn't been to before with a buyer she didn't really know that well. So she sent me the buyer's information with his phone number, his name. She sent the property that they were going to, and she told me, I'm meeting him at 1:00. Will you check in with me at 1:30? And then she checked in with me at like 1:25. So we're always good with that. And then also another benefit of the office is we have security cameras at the office that record the parking lot as well as the office itself. So definitely one of the safer places to meet.
Absolutely. Okay, so buyer's consultation. Here are the steps you want to clarify. Number one, verify the loan qualification. If you refer them to your lender, that's easy because you know your lender, you trust your lender, and you know they do a good job. But they are working with their own lender at their own bank. You want to call the lender and say, okay, talk to me about this. Like, what have you actually done? If they're like, oh yeah, I talked to him, I've known him for a while, we're good. That's not a qualification, right? And it's ridiculous how many lenders will do that. You want to say, did you pull their credit? Do you know what their income is and their debt, right? You want to really talk to your lender about it. So anyways, that's step one. Step two, review the buyer's search criteria. It's really important. This goes back to the listing. Like, what is the minimum amount of bedrooms? What's the minimum amount of bathrooms? What else is important to you? Are you only looking for places with a backyard? Do you need at least 2 covered parking spots? Ask them any questions like that. It's not a bad idea to develop a list of questions, right? Make a Google Doc of like questions to ask a buyer. Buyers aren't going to think that's tacky. If you have a printed out list that you're going to write notes on, they're gonna be like, oh, that's really thoughtful if they have thought of this. And that way you're not forgetting things, right? It's a big deal if you forget like to ask them if they need a garage. That's huge, right? That could totally change the type of properties they're looking for. One thing about that though, when you're asking them about criteria, remind them, okay, tell me what criteria you would love, but then tell me what criteria you'd be okay with if everything else worked out. So the reason I say that is if someone's like, well, we need 3 bedrooms, but we want 4 because we want a guest room. Okay, Mr. Buyer, that's great. But if we found a home that fit all your other criteria, but it had 3 bedrooms, would you be interested? Well, yeah, we'd be interested. Okay, perfect. So then the search criteria is going to be 3+ bedrooms. Does that make sense? Because if you're only looking for 4+ bedrooms when you set up a search, then you're going to miss all those potentially perfect homes minus the extra bedroom that we just missed because our criteria wasn't right. So that's really, really important. Ask for what they love and listen to them. Be like, oh yeah, it's so great. I love having a guest room. And then ask them, okay, but we want to set a wide net. What do you absolutely need? And what would you consider like, I'd be fine, right? Okay.
I will also say, if you do want to make one of those lists, feel free to send it to me to proof it. I think a lot of times people accidentally use discriminatory language that they might not have thought of being possibly discriminatory. The MLS has a pretty strict list of rules and words you can't use, so just feel free to send it my way.
Yeah, this goes into redlining a little bit, right? Where a lot of redlining that has occurred is not purposeful. In fact, I would venture to say 95% of redlining is not deliberate, purposeful racism, right? Or discrimination. It is people not even thinking about it. Where someone says, okay, the most important thing to us is low crime and great schools. And you say, well, then you absolutely don't want to be by the mall in Tacoma because that's a horrible area with all kinds of crime and horrible schools. I'm being facetious here. I'm not actually saying that. But if you said that, that could be misinterpreted as redlining and pushing someone away from an area. So you got it. It's tough. It's tough because they're asking you, hey, what areas would you live? So you got to be careful how you say things like that. And that's kind of what Robin's saying, especially if it's in writing. be very careful how you're saying like, don't go here. Can't really do that. So anyways, that's just something to think about.
Isaac and I are happy to double check and make sure we CYA.
Yep. So learn about your buyers. We already talked about that. Introduce buyers to your team. This is a really great opportunity. Again, even if you're not hiring Sarah as your transaction coordinator, Sarah is in the back reviewing your files. Even if you haven't spoken with Robin in a couple of months, still go on social media and show them, hey, here's what my marketing person, Robin, she's my marketing person, does for all of my when I get, this is more applicable with a listing, if we're being honest, because the buyer doesn't so much care about the marketing, right? But show off your team. If you are newer, you can say, I don't know, I don't have all the answers. I don't, right? But I work with Isaac, and Isaac has been in the business for 5 years, and he works with Craig, has been in the business for 22 years. And if I don't have the answer, I know they have the answers, and we'll get the answers to you. So anyways, all that to say, utilize the team and show off the fact that you have a team, because if they're interviewing other buyers agents, they're probably just acting like they're alone. So it makes you look way more professional, big. Oh, also, if you want to talk about Move Easy, that's a great thing to mention to a buyer. Say, I have my own moving concierge service. When we go pending, my moving concierge service is going to help you set up a mail forwarding address and set up utilities at the new address and help set up movers if you need that. So anyways, they'll be contacting you after you go pending. How many other agents are saying that? Not many, right? Okay, educate the buyer about the process, the process now to closing. This is super, super important, because buyers, you do this every day, right? So you're like, oh, well, obviously we're going to look at homes, we're going to write offers, we're going to, get an offer accepted. We know that. The buyer doesn't know that, so don't assume anything. So maybe if a buyer's bought 5 different homes and you know that they've been around the block, say, ask if they have any questions. But especially if it's a first-time home buyer, really sit down and talk to them. Okay, let's set the expectation. We're going to look at a lot of homes. When you find the right home, we're in a hot market. We're going to write offers, and we're probably not going to get some acceptance. We need to be aggressive. And here's what that looks like. This is a huge conversation, and too much to go into today, but setting that expectation is really important. Secure buyer with the loyalty agreement. That's the buyer's agency agreement, if you would like. Schedule showing appointments. And areas of great importance. Make sure you have pre-approval on the loan. Quick you guys probably know this, but quick asterisk: if you don't have a pre-approval letter when you're writing an offer, a listing broker is going to laugh at you. They're not going to accept your offer. I can almost guarantee it. You need a pre-approval letter. Okay, so if a lender is not giving you an actual physical pre-approval letter, get a pre-approval letter. Home search criteria, again, just make sure you know exactly what their minimum criteria is. Personality styles, educate them. Okay, the pending path. So this picture illustrates what we in the industry refer to as pending path. A lot of people think that once we find the home and have successfully negotiated an acceptable offer, that our work is finished. Actually, once you and the seller are in agreement, that is where the greatest amount of work begins. I think I disagree with that. I think the greatest amount of work is showing a crap ton of homes, which is all we do in this hot market. It's crazy. I actually love it when we get to the contract. Anyways, most of it is done behind the scenes and you won't even be aware of it. However, occasionally we come across something that might cause a delay, such as repairs or title issues, things that weren't public record. If something like this comes up, RTC or myself will communicate with you, and we'll get through it. So you have to communicate with us and we'll get through it together, unless, if you're an experienced broker and you've handled it, that's great. But if you have questions, especially in a transaction, do talk to us. Okay, the buyer consultation. Make sure you're sprinkling lots of comments about representation all through your presentation by saying things like, I'm going to help you negotiate the best possible price and terms. I will act as your advocate. My job is to help you get through the process and the paperwork quickly and successfully. These are some examples of ways that you can make them feel comfortable. Another thing, this is kind of an aggressive thing. I was just talking to one of our agents about saying this. I like to remind agents, buyers, you don't pay me. The seller pays me, so I'm free to you. I like to remind them that. It's really good to remind them how you're paid, how that works. I also like to remind them that I work up front, meaning I'm confident. I don't get paid for doing work unless we find that perfect home that you love. So we're partners in on this, right? Like obviously you want to find that perfect home for you to live in. I want to find that perfect home for you because quite frankly, I don't get paid unless we find that perfect home for you. So we're partners on this, and I'm investing my time, and we're in this together. Phrase that to be however you like. That doesn't always work for everyone, but I like that line and people appreciate that. We've already talked about this. Get the buyer's representation agreement signed. I'm not going to belabor it. We've already talked about it. We've already talked about it. I'm skipping through some slides. I want to respect your guys' time. So we've already talked about it. Let's just move on. Okay, buyer's objections. Investigate, validate, educate, close. There are several objections to signing a buyer's representation agreement. Blah, blah, blah. This is just giving a script on how to handle it. You know what? I will go over this. So this is good. If you guys are leaning towards getting buyer's agent agreement signed, agency agreement signed, this is an example of how you can kind of validate yourself, educate them, and get them to sign it. So it sounds like you need to take some. This is when somebody is stalling. They're saying they would like to sleep on it before they sign something. So sounds like you need time to make sure the agreement is acceptable. Is that right? Buyer, well, kind of. Can you share with me what concern or concerns you might have in moving forward? Buyer, well, nothing really. It's just that we want to run it past our attorney or parents or family. Oh, of course, that makes perfect sense and is a good practice to have. May I make a suggestion? Buyer, of course. How about I write in here that you may cancel the agreement in writing within 48 hours for any reason. That way, I can get started on your home search without delay. Would that work for you? Okay, that's their script. How about this? If anybody is feeling really strongly about getting buyer's agency agreement signed, that's awesome. I'm proud of you. That's great. Talk to me and we'll do some more role play because it is a great thing that you can do if that's what you want to do. But we're going to skip that for now. After the buyer signs a loyalty agreement, you will set your first appointment to show them a few homes. And this is also after they've been pre-approved. Another reason why, by the way, I didn't say this about pre-approval. Obviously, you need a pre-approval letter to know that they actually can buy the type of homes they want, right? If they're looking at homes around 500,000, but they're only approved 400,000, that'd be an epic waste of time to go show 10 homes in the 500,000 range, right? So that's another very important thing. So you'll show them no more than 6 homes at a time. Don't know where that number came from. I disagree. It says, let them know that because of your system, most buyers find that just the right home in a fewer than 6, your system is good.
So that's not written about the Tacoma market, which is super wild. There's not a lot of inventory. There's going to be multiple offers. You show your clients all the houses they want to see.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about this. This is what I do. Okay. So I set them up on a search. We've done that before. If you don't know how to set people up on a search on either Real Scout or the Northwest MLS, schedule a meeting with me and I'll show you how to do that. So you set them up on a search with their criteria. What you do from there is you say, hey, when you see a home that you would like to see, indicate that to me somehow, whether you send it to me or you mark it on the MLS, you star it, something like that, and I'll get it scheduled. You want to find out a time that they're available. This is really important. Right now in COVID-19 times, you have to schedule every single appointment. So it's not like it used to be where you can show a bunch of vacant homes and your clients can say, oh, I'm available at 5. And then they're like, oh, actually, sorry, I won't be there until 5:30. That doesn't work because you set up, I've been showing a few buyers recently and I'm telling you, we're set 5, 5:15, 5:30, 5:45. It's like we're down to the minute. So just a quick note there, when they send you the list of homes and they say, hey, I'm gonna be ready at 5 p.m. tonight, express to them, hey, if we're late, we miss it because I've got the next appointments all on top of each other and we can't be late to all of them. So you miss it if we're late. So just wanna let you know that. From there, what I tell people, especially if we're looking at a lot of homes, is I go on the MLS and I print out every single home and I give it to them so that they can write notes. It's great when you're working with a couple or 2 people. You say, okay, one of you, when you get in the car and we're driving to the next one, talk about it and write down what you liked or didn't like. If it's a no, cross it out so you don't have to go back and be like, oh, wait, I can't remember. When you're looking at 10 plus homes, they all kind of blend together. So I give this to my buyer and say, here's what you're going to do. You're going to write down yes, no, or yes, if we can get it at this price, or yes, absolutely love it. I'll pay whatever it takes, right? Have them write notes, because when you see 10 plus homes, it's like they all kind of blend together. Let me see. I think that's it on this page.
Would it be helpful if I created like a form that you guys could give to your buyers to look at every property? So all you have to do is like fill in the MLS number, and then they can check like what they liked, what they didn't like, take quick notes? Or is that excessive?
It would be, because that's more work than me just print. The MLS lets you print out a report that just prints it out, and then it has places where they can write notes. So that would be more work because I'd have to input that. That's me personally. If somebody would,
Okay.
I appreciate the offer.
No, that makes sense.
Skimming through this, guys. We've already talked about this. Set up MLS searches, contact your database. Okay, let's talk about that really quick. This is a good opportunity. Oftentimes people use this, and I've seen people be very successful. It's kind of cool, where you have a buyer and they're looking in Graham and they say they need a home with 4+ bedrooms and 2+ bathrooms. So you post on the MLS on Facebook and you say, hey, I'm working with a buyer who's looking for a home in Graham. Okay. The reason that's, first off, get your buyer's permission. Don't put your buyer's name and information. But it's cool because number one, people are like, wow, that's super cool. My Isaac is a real estate agent who cares so much about his client. He's not just looking on the MLS, he's looking for off-market deals. It's a cool option that you can do that. And it's good marketing, and potentially you have somebody who's like, yeah, I'm actually looking to sell my home, and you can help represent the seller and the buyer, which is a whole other topic on dual agency. But anyways, that's kind of the point of this. Contact your COI database and posting on social media. Showing techniques, call ahead. I'm gonna just go through this really quick. We're talking COVID times here, okay? So if you're watching this after COVID-19, man, you're lucky. Times have changed. So every appointment has to be scheduled. So you have to schedule it on showing time, and you cannot overlap with other showings. If a home is vacant, you still have to schedule it. Back in the day, if it was vacant, you didn't have to schedule it. So that has changed. Now you actually technically don't need to leave a business card, but you can leave a business card. I always do leave a business card. If not COVID times, you always have to leave a business card. In fact, you can get fined if you do not. Other important things are to make sure you are taking off your shoes, especially if it's raining, especially if they tell you to take off your shoes, turning off all the lights. Follow your buyers around. Don't let your buyers go to one part and you go to one part, because if they steal something, you are responsible. I know it sounds dramatic, but especially if it's a buyer who you don't know, make sure you all stay together as a group. Right now, everyone has to wear a mask. And right now, currently, as of November 12th, only 5 people, including yourself, can go in at a time. Showing instructions are always changing, so always be aware of that. If you look it up on the MLS, it'll tell you what the updated showing instructions are. Lastly, super important, double, triple, quadruple check you lock the doors. It is a major fine, and if it happens twice, you can get your license suspended if you leave a door unlocked. It's so important. If there's a security system, make sure you set it before you leave, if that's what the directions are. Sounds like a lot of information. Once you do it enough, it'll start to flow and feel more natural. But anyways, just have a checklist, right? Go back to the notes from RevUP and print this out, and check things off as you go, because you really don't want to miss any of this. And lastly, the respectful thing to do is to give feedback to the seller, whether you like the home or not. Actually, if you really like the home, you're writing an offer, that's pretty good feedback. But especially if you're not going to write an offer, give the broker feedback when they ask for it, which most of the time they do. They send you an email and they say, hey, what did your buyer think of the home? And if your buyer thinks it's overpriced and the backyard is ugly or whatever, then tell them that, because they need to know that, and they need to go back to their seller and say, hey, I just want to let you know this is why they didn't write an offer. And that helps have the tough conversations with seller. It's a respectful thing to do. When you have listings, you'll want people to do the same. It's frustrating when they don't. Accompany the buyer into every room, state the obvious, disagree with him, defend the property, skip a home, think how you'd feel. We've already talked about all this. we'll move on. Okay, so this is kind of getting the buyer to not kind of drag their feet. This is tough because part of me is like, well, I don't want to pressure my buyer to buy a home they don't absolutely love. Yes, but you also want to set their expectation right. I worked with a buyer a couple years ago who I actually ended up firing, which is, you know, a lot of people are like, what, you fired a buyer? Yeah, no, I absolutely did. I showed him probably 60 plus homes over a few month period, and there were homes that fit their criteria perfectly, and they just found little reasons not to write an offer, and it was a waste of my time, and I fired them politely. I'm not going to talk too much about how that works. If you ever need to fire a client, talk to me. You want to be careful and make sure that they don't feel like they're being discriminated against. But the point of this is try and spot if your buyer is being ridiculous, which does happen sometimes. You know, buyers will sometimes just say, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. That's a common thing that buyers will say if they're not serious. And you need to decide if they're worth continuing to work with, or if you just need to sit them down and say, hey, my time is valuable. Let's talk about why these homes didn't work, because I know what's important to you and they seem to work perfectly. And you called out the color of the paint. That's not a good reason not to buy a home. Let's talk about it and find out what are the actual objections. Anyways, it's a huge topic, but we're not going to spend too much time on that. If you're working with a buyer like that and you want to talk to me about how to kind of give that buyer a kick in the butt, or worst case, fire them, talk to me. Whoops. Okay, number 7, property selection. How to spot buying signals. Buyer exchanges glances looks that say, this is good. They talk about where they would place furniture. One or more of the buyers sits on the furniture in a particular room, usually the living room or the family room. You hear positive explanations such as, wow, oh my. Okay, this is all obvious stuff. The idea is look for positives, look for negatives. If somebody's going through a home, if you haven't shown a lot of homes, you won't get this as much, but I've shown so many homes. I know exactly what they're saying here. What they're saying is when you're walking through a home, you kind of know within the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes, honestly, what they feel. And if they're just like, if you can tell they don't like it, move on. Let's get to the next one, move on. But if they're saying things like, oh, wow, this is cool. And you see them looking at each other like, oh, this is awesome. Work off that and you want to encourage them to write the offer, right? They like it. It fits their criteria. So help push them in the right direction. Don't push them if they're not into it, but if they are into it, help push them in the right direction. Yeah, that pretty much covers that slide. So if after a few showings you become aware of a change in the buyer's criteria, very common, you must set an appointment or take the time right then and there to review the list, their list of criteria. Go back through every feature and ask the buyer to think about the feature and the relationship, the features of the home that they don't like or that they do like. This happens, right? You have buyers who you show them a lot of homes and it seems to be working, but then you realize they're saying no to every home because it doesn't have a big enough backyard. Okay, guys, we need to expand our search. We need to only search for homes with a big backyard. You didn't tell me that first. Now we know. We won't spend too much time on that. That's obvious. Okay, let's talk about getting your offers accepted. Okay, this is my favorite part. This is the best part. This is about, how to compete, especially in a hot market like this. Okay, so there are a lot of different aspects of an offer that you can do to make your offer attractive. Most people think the highest offer is going to win. It's not true. So there's a lot of things, right? You've got the type of financing. Are you a cash buyer? Are you a conventional buyer? Are you a VA buyer, FHA buyer? There's other type of loans. In general, if you're working with a VA or FHA buyer, it's less attractive than a conventional buyer and obviously a cash buyer. The reason is FHA and VA appraisers are more stringent on condition. They're going to call out little things that the seller will need to fix, and they are more the value of the home often comes in less. So anyways, just know that if you're working with an FHA or VA buyer, you have to be that much better than those other conventional buyers out there. So how are ways that you can be better than them, because you're not going to change their financing? We talked about this last week. The 22A, the financing addendum, you can shorten those timelines. This is too big of a topic to talk about today, but shorten the timelines on the financing addendum. Know what you're shortening so that you can explain it to your clients properly. And if you have questions about this, talk to me. Read the forms manual in 22A, and you can find a lot of ways to make your offer more attractive. Your inspection timeline, shorten that inspection timeline. So many people have 7-10-day inspection timelines. You don't need 7 to 10 days. Talk to inspectors, make connections with inspectors ahead of time so that you can find out, what normally is your turnaround time, and have a few different ones so that if you get your offer accepted tonight, you can do it you can get the inspection done in 1 or 2 days and have their response within 3 days. Once you do the inspection, talk to your client about, hey, we're competing and we want to get this home. If there's little repairs, how can we, the less you ask for, the more likely you are to get the offer to go to closing. So talk to them about like, hey, when the inspection comes, you're going to have little things come up in the inspection. That's the inspector's job. They're going to say there's not enough caulk around the shower, et cetera, et cetera. If you're calling that out, you're not going to get the inspection response accepted. It doesn't happen. So set the buyer's expectation ahead of time. So I'm not really sure what this has to do with in regards to getting your offer accepted. It's talking about give property condition disclosures. Make sure you're you're giving the lead-based paint disclosure. I don't really know exactly why that is applicable on today. And same with environmental disclosures. That doesn't really affect writing offers. Or getting your offer accepted. So we're going to move on past that. Okay, unless the market is an extreme buyer's market, which I've never experienced in the 5 years I've been in business, the following truths should be shared with every one of your buyer's clients. This helps them understand the reality of the real estate market and encourages them to be realistic in their expectation. Unless the market is an extreme buyer's market, that's repeating itself. Okay, you will get the price or terms and likely not both. Does that make sense? So if you're a VA buyer, you're probably going to have to offer a higher price. So would you rather pay a lower price for the home and take care of your own financing, like your own closing costs, et cetera, or would you rather have help from the seller on that and raise your offer price? This is all pretty obvious. Let me just boil this down to the obvious. Getting your offer accepted comes down to 2 things. You've got how much are you offering, and then the terms. So how much are you offering is your net to the seller. So if you're offering $500,000, but you're asking for $10,000 in seller paid closing costs, then you're really offering $490,000. So what's your net? And then it's the terms. As we said, financing is normally something you can't control. VA, FHA, conventional, that's the cards you're dealt, but you can shorten timelines. You can have a quicker inspection. You can do a pre-inspection. That's a huge one, right? A pre-inspection is where, if the seller allows it, you inspect the home on Sunday before they review on Monday, and then you write your offer as is. Maybe your offer is going to be less than other offers, but the other offers have inspection contingencies, and the seller just wants to be done in quick closing. Quick closing is another one. Have a quick closing. Talk to your lender and say, what is the quickest we can close? 28 days? Perfect. Put that in. Little things like that can help. If you have questions about how to make your offer more attractive, talk to me. It is a science, but it is really fun, and I have lots of great ideas on how to do that. Okay, consider writing a buyer's cover letter. This is something that my mind has changed on a little bit recently. I'm going to try and be really quick on this. There was a case in California where a seller accepted an offer from a buyer who had a letter. And the buyer who had a higher offer who didn't get it accepted was able to sue the seller because they said it was based off of discrimination. It's a long story. As a buyer, though, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to say, as a buyer, if you think a letter will help, as a representative buyer, if you're writing an offer and the sellers are a couple who absolutely love their home, and you talk to them and they want the home to go to a nice family or whatever, it doesn't hurt for the buyer to write a cover letter. In fact, it's a good thing. It can be a good thing. I just wanted to say this really quick. If you're representing the seller, we need to have a conversation about the cover letter, because the cover letter can really can be issue if the seller is accepting an offer just based off that. This is
It can
also,
be,
what was that?
sorry, it can be really damning of discrimination. You got to be super careful.
If you're representing the seller, but if you're representing the buyer, it's different. You can definitely use a cover letter, and I often encourage my buyers to do this. And if nothing else, you can also just use no emotion and just send them, instead of just sending them the offer, send them the offer just with a quick word to yourself. Say, hey, I've been working with these buyers for the past 3 weeks. This is their favorite home they've seen in the entire time I've shown them. And we are so excited, and we're going to close really fast. And here's my lender's information. And feel free to call the lender and ask them how awesome my buyers are, et cetera, et cetera. There's no issue in doing that as well, and that's a good thing to do. All right, tips for communicating with the listing agent. This is awesome because if you're really close and you are, we're competing against other agents. You're competing against other buyers, but you're also competing against our agents, and the listing agent has a little bit of a say in what offer gets accepted, especially if we're really close. So you want that listing agent to love you. So this is not the, buyer in the seller's market like this is not the opportunity to be a shark negotiator and be like, all right, here's my offer. I was trying to be dramatic. You get the point. This is not the market to be a negotiator. This is a market to kiss up to the listing broker. You want the listing broker to love you. And as ridiculous as this sounds, I was just talking to Andrew about this the other day. I'm pretty good at this. This is what I do. This is one thing that I know I do well. And I call the listing broker and I always start out something like this. I say, hey, this is Isaac with Realty ONE Group. How's it going? Great. Do you have a second? I love asking if you have a second because people appreciate that. If they don't have a second, then you're like, no worries. When can I call you back? Sorry, tiny tip. And then I say, well, I'm calling about your listing here. First off, I just want to say, congratulations on the listing. Wow, what a fantastic listing. Now their ego's up. They're like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, thank you. And then you say, by the way, your pictures are amazing. Who do you use for your photographer? Oh, well, you did a great job. And I know, and your marketing is awesome. Dude, this is really a great listing. Okay, now they love me because every other agent who's called them and asked them about the home is just like trying to get them to accept the offer. I just became their friend. Not really, but kind of, right? Anyways, so be a good communicator, flatter them, get the listing agent to like you, all the above. Handling difficult agents. This is easy for me. Honestly, I work with difficult agents all the time. And to me, I like when I'm working with a difficult agent because I know that most real estate agents are going to get annoyed and they're going to fight back. But I'm fine. I can put my ego to the side. And so when I'm talking to an agent who thinks they know everything, I just work right into that. I'm like, wow, you are so smart. You really do know everything. Again, being dramatic. But I'm not going to belabor this point too much. The point of this is if you're working with a difficult agent, see that as an advantage because it's going to piss off every other agent. So if you don't get pissed off, that's something that you can use to your advantage. And if they feel like you're someone who they like and they are a difficult agent, they're having trouble working with other agents, you have a better opportunity to give your offer accepted. Handling difficult buyers. Okay, so what about if your buyer is difficult and or unrealistic? Using the steps of IVEC can help in just about every situation. So buyer says, there's no way I'm going to make an offer at full price, at full asking price. Sellers always overpriced, knowing their offer will be lower. Knowing the offer will be lower. My plan is to offer at least $20,000 under asking price. We all know that will absolutely not work in this hot market. So how do you handle that? So here's what you would say as an example. Sounds like you are concerned about paying too much for the property, right? Buyer, well, certainly. I mean, the last thing I want to do is pay too much. Absolutely. I'm a consumer too, and I don't want to pay too much for anything either. However, may I take a minute to address this? Validates the buyer's fears and makes a truthful statement. Well, I guess so. I'm still not making a full offer. That's their shields go up. Don't worry, I'm not here to make you do anything you don't feel comfortable doing. My job is to help you locate, negotiate, and have a smooth, successful transaction. Let's take a look at the market data. Okay, so then you show them the market data. You show them, Craig does this all the time before we're even looking at homes. He shows them the area that a buyer is looking, and he looks at homes that have sold in the past 30, 60, 90 days, and he shows them, there's a report I can show you on the MLS, that they're going for 103% of list price. He does that ahead of time. So people are like, actually, Mr. Seller, you're wrong. I mean, Mr. Buyer, you're wrong. Homes are not selling for 20,000 less than list price. They're exact opposite. Set the expectation ahead of time and show them with statistics, okay? Another thing I want to say about this is super important. Buyers, for some reason, get so hung up on the purchase price, which is ridiculous. You do not buy a home based off of the purchase price. You buy a home based off of the payment, right? Nobody's like, I can afford a $300,000 home because that's all I can afford. No, actually, cash buyers do that. Okay, so if you're not a cash buyer, you're not working with a cash buyer, people know how much they can afford based off of how much they can pay per month. So if they can pay $1,800 per month, they can probably afford about $320,000 home. Okay, so if a home is listed at $280 and they only want to offer $280, you really have to sit them down and without saying you're crazy, tell them they're crazy. Say, hey, we've been looking at a bunch of homes at $320 and they weren't as nice as this home that's $280. I don't care what they listed this home at. The point is this was way below your budget. And I don't care that we're offering $30,000 above at $310. It's still a great deal and it's inside your budget. So anyways, that's kind of how I handle buyers who are objecting for based off the purchase price. It's horrible. It makes no sense. It's really nonsensical. And you really have to just kind of sit them down and explain like, hey, why did we pick this purchase? Why do we know why do you have your purchase price max? It's because of the payment, right? It's not because of the purchase price. Okay. Buyer's market versus seller's market. Let's talk about this really quick. I'm not even going to use this metric up here. Right now we're in a buyer's market. What that means, a seller's market. Seller's market means, quite simply, there is less inventory than there are buyers, right? It's supply and demand. There are more buyers out there and there are less listings. So if there's 5 buyers for every 1 listing, then guess what? It's going to be harder to separate your one buyer and get your offer accepted. That's really the point. When it flips, that's when you have more listings than you have buyers, right? People aren't buying, it's a bad economy, unemployment's high, and subsequently people are selling, they're losing jobs, they need to sell their home and downgrade, etc. And so there's more inventory, less buyers. It's an easy point to understand. I'm not going to belabor that too much. Yeah, I'm definitely going to disagree on that. I've never had someone present an offer in person. I'm not even sure what I would do if I had a listing and somebody came to my office and said, hey, here's an offer. That's kind of funny. Robin, I think next time I go through RevUp, I'm going to make these slides more personal for me because that one's almost comical.
Yeah, that one I would be like, hello, why are you here?
Thank you.
It's so awkward. Thank you.
I will say it does make a difference to me when I have a listing and somebody sends me just the authentic sign, so the buyer signs it and it goes directly to me as a CC. Seems a little unprofessional. When I get an email with the offer and it has the little cover letter, hey, thank you so much for reviewing my offer. The purchase price is this, the closing date is this, we're a conventional buyer and this is how long the important timelines are. If you have any questions, call me whenever. I mean, come on, that's way more impressive and I want to work with you as an agent. We don't really have to take too much time on that, but that's obvious. Like, be professional, take your time, write the offer, download the offer and send them a professional letter. You are the underdog. The seller has all kinds of offers. You are one of 5, 10 offers. So how do you separate yourself? Little tiny things like that. Going on through to the closing process, once you get mutual acceptance, step 1, you send the mutual acceptance to everybody. You send it to our firm, the listing broker, escrow, and your lender. Make sure you send that to everyone right away. Also send it to your buyer. If you're not working with a transaction coordinator, then make sure you have a mutual acceptance email where you're sending this and you're reminding your buyer of the important deadlines. You have to have earnest money in within 2 days, or you have to have it to me within 2 days so I can deliver it within 3 days. You have to have the inspection responses due on this date. Remember the computation of time. Anything 5 days or less does not include weekends and holidays. 6 days or more does. It's a lot. I'm going really fast, so you don't have to remember all this, but talk to me if we need to talk about this a little more. Okay. I talked about this. We get mutual acceptance. We do the inspection. The seller does the repairs. What we want to look for in the inspection, what is the lender going to ask for? They're always going to ask for any loan. They're always going to ask for broken windows to be repaired. They need CO2 and smoke detectors on each floor. They need straps on the hot water tank. If there's major exposed wood on the exterior, that needs to be covered up with primer and or paint. Little things like that. We could spend a whole meeting talking about that. Talk to me about that if you have questions. There's title issues, those will be handled around here. We have the appraisal in this area too. Close the transaction, the buyer moves in. Don't be afraid to take this slide, by the way. Send this to your buyer ahead of time so they know what to expect. Prepare the buyer for last minute lender requirements. This is really important. I also think I skipped over this in the beginning. When you first are talking with a buyer, make sure you're reminding them that the lender will be doing this too, working in unison with the lender, but make sure you remind them, hey, they're approving you based off of your credit now. So guess what? You get a new credit card, you get a car payment, anything like that, your credit goes down and now your loan completely changes and you may not qualify for the home. Don't do anything to your credit. Also, this one just happened to me, guys. It's really sad. I was like so close to working with these good friends of mine who are going to be buying a home right around the holidays. And one of them got tired of his job. And so he quit his job and started his own business. And he was so excited and called me and I had to tell him the bad news. Hey, not sure if you want to go back and get your job back, but if you get a total career change, they can't take your income anymore. You have to have a year minimum, normally 2 years of tax returns showing that you have consistent income in a new industry. Now, if somebody went and worked for a dumb example, worked at Starbucks for 5 years and then got a new job at Dutch Bros, that would probably be fine because that's the same industry and there wasn't a big break. But anyways, he went from an employed job where he made about 60,000 to self-employed. There's so much there to unpack, but anyways, letting them know ahead of time, which I didn't do in this case. I mean, that's a hard one to get ahead of. I would never have thought of him, quitting his job. But anyways, something to think about. And then talk to your buyers about talk to your lender about talking to your buyers about last minute things that they're going to need. They're going to need updated pay stubs right before closing, things like that. Let them know that escrow is going to be calling them right before closing, about a week before closing, to schedule the in-person signing or the notary signing. Remind them that escrow and their lender and none of escrow's assistants or lender's assistants are going to call them and say, hey, Robin, I am the escrow assistant. I'm here to confirm your social security. They'll never do that over the phone. They're never going to confirm your checking and routing number over the phone, right? So make sure you tell them this ahead of time and you say, don't just be giving out your information over the phone unless you call them and you're doing it, you're instigating it. That's really important. There are so many hackers out there. Set the expectation for closing. So the day of closing, after we've signed, the documents are going to be released to record, and then probably around 3 to 5 o'clock, it's going to be recorded. You technically, unless you change it on the contract, do not have access to the property until 9 p.m. That's when you actually have access to the property, or the seller, if they've already moved out, which normally happens, will allow you access as soon as it closes. But you want to let your buyers know this, that the day of closing, you're probably not going to be able to move in, even if you want to, because the earliest you can move in is after it's recorded, assuming the seller's left, and the seller technically has until 9 p.m. Okay, step 14, buyer takes possession of the home. This is, again, the most important overlooked part, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, but this is where you seal the deal and you try and get them to be clients for life, and you try and get them to refer you. This is where you want to blow them away. You want to remind them what you've done without patting yourself on the back, but say, oh my gosh, we looked at so many homes and we found the perfect one. I'm so happy we were able to negotiate that into the, that they replaced the shower in the inspection, without being cocky. You're kind of like reminding them, you're asking them to give you a testimonial. Robin, maybe next Tech Tuesday. No, we've already done it, but Robin has done a Tech Tuesday on our new testimonial app. So if you have questions about that, let me know, and get them a gift. That's really important. Even if it's a small gift, a gift card, always, when you come to closing, give them a gift card or something so that they're not expecting it. I promise you they're not. I don't think I've ever had a buyer be like, oh, thanks. Just they're always like, whoa, thank you so much. That's really nice. But always do it. It's such an easy thing to do. And then remember to follow up with them following, right? The next few weeks and months, be like, hey, how are things going? If they have a problem that came up, say, no problem. Do you need a plumber? Do you need an electrician? Do you need a contractor? Anyways, this is the last step, and make sure the follow-up is good. All right, guys, that's it. As always, we end on the one habit, our goal every day that you work, whether it's 3 days a week or 5 days a week or 7 days a week, make 3 calls, add 3 people to your database, and send 6 emails, texts, or if possible, handwritten letters out per working day. That is the goal. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm sorry I went a little long today. That meeting was a little tough because I didn't agree with everything that the slides said. And so thank you everyone for bearing with me on RevUp. This is, as many of you know, the first time I've really gone through the whole RevUp program. And so it'll be better next time around.
Which is going to be restarting next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.